down, they can return your application as incomplete. I have skilled worker visa of healthcare. Okay, no question there. My daughter is in Winnipeg on work visa after studies in Canada. She is GNM nursing. Okay. So, what are the chances for PR? It depends on her work experience, to be honest. I need to know her entire profile. But then at this point, for somebody who has experience in healthcare, there are a lot of PR options available, be it federal or provincial. So you can definitely check that. But most likely, to begin with, get that GNM assessed through IQAS to get a equivalency. BSc nursing apply for Canada, which visa is best? Again, depends on your profile. It's not specifically your education that matters, it's also your work experience. So you need to see that. Raman says, can we book biometrics appointment without AOR for non-express PR file? Um, you can only book a biometric appointment if you have that biometric instructions letter. If you don't have a biometric instructions letter, you cannot book any biometrics appointments for irrespective of the category that you're applying under. What if someone is not having birth certificate? Any solution? You need to get an affidavit, have a self declaration made that you did not have any birth certificate and why you don't have it, and attach it with that document proof. Is water treatment OIT point I can get for certificate of qualification? Absolutely not. So if somebody is doing a water and wastewater certification, it does not give you points for certificate of qualification. There are a lot of questions of people about what certificate of qualifications really are. If you want to know whether your certification gives any points or not, make sure you check the provincial website, check whether that certain province where you're living offers a certificate of qualification for the trade you are in or not. In terms of water and wastewater, and if we talk specifically about Ontario, they do not offer any certificate of qualification. There are examinations, of course, like training examinations or to get an exam, but not necessarily that all of them are certificate of qualifications. Tell about Nova Scotia skilled worker for security guards. What about the update that was on 4th of September? So, as of now, Nova Scotia is saying that they are almost, filled up for the quota for 2024. But what they're going to do is they're only going to process the applications that are in the priority sector. Now, if we talk about priority sector, that is construction, healthcare, childcare. So things like that would go in. Now, if your application has already been submitted under Security Guard Nova Scotia PNP, it could be processed, it might be processed next year. It depends on the quota, it depends on the assessment that they're doing, and depends on what kind of intake they're taking for different NOC codes. So if you want to submit the application, definitely you can. They have not closed the application process or anything, so you can still submit the application and wait for the decision, but it could take time. So if usual time is 4 to 6 months, it could take an additional 2-3 months as well. Can you talk about the caregiver route? Uh, at this point, they have not exactly elaborated on the caregiver program, what they're going to do about it. But as far as the minimum eligibility is concerned, they said that the minimum education required is high school. CLB 4 is the language requirement. You should have relevant experience and education. And lastly, you should have a job offer from a Canadian employer. As long as you have those things ready, get your VEST done for your highest education, get your IELTS done. As long as you have that, you should be prepared. But we still have to know more when the IRCC announce what kind of program guidelines are going to be for this new pathway. I have 2-year experience in healthcare and I want to move from UK. Um, if you have healthcare experience, now we need to know what particularly do you have experience in. Is it a nurse aide? Is it a nurse? So accordingly, we'll be able to suggest options. But at this point, do check Express Entry's category-based selection for healthcare occupations. Um, I'm BSc nursing staff. I have 3 year hospital experience in India. I want to discuss LMI is the best way to apply to Canada. So, Roop, you might not need the LMI if you have a hospital experience, but then hospital experience, I'm assuming it's a staff nurse experience that you're talking about, or anything which is related to healthcare and is under express entry category based selection. So you might not need LMI at all. You could qualify for direct permanent residency given that you meet the current CRS scores. If you want to discuss more on that, we can definitely do a one on one session as well. 10-year experience, Western, Isleston, both academic and general. Okay, I'm not sure what the question is. From UK, which option best to come to Canada and BSc nursing? Again, money, it's not just about your education, it's also about your experience and about your age, about what were you doing in the last years. So it's not a one answer question. Truck that draw the koi opinion. Uh, Again, it has been a while since they conducted the last trucking transportation draw. I think it was back in March. So we are hoping for at least one draw in this year before they kind of finish up the quotas for 2024. But let's see. It's nothing I can kind of guess on. So I just discussed about the new caregiver as well. I am a full time employee working as a PSW in long term care in Kingston. Which PR pathway is best for me? And after how many months I can apply my permanent residency? Of course, now. If you want to apply for a permanent residency as a long term care personal support worker, which is a nurse aid occupation, it's a tier 3, you could qualify for express entry healthcare category based selection. Or if you have a bachelor's degree minimum, you could also qualify for human capital priority stream because that's what Ontario PNP is targeting healthcare aides under if they have experience in Canada. And this category is only based on experience. You don't need any job offer. All you need is employment confirmation. So if you meet the eligibility, you could qualify directly and apply for permanent residency. I have 1 year self-employed experience from India, home tutor. I was teaching secondary and elementary students, but getting cash that time. Can I claim points? It's genuine experience. Um, yes, self-employed experience does count if it's from back home from India. So yes, you can claim points as long as you have proofs that this is a self-employed experience you're doing. You need to provide a lot of proofs, like because it's a home tutoring that you're doing, so it has to be any registration you did for the business, maybe declarations from the students' parents that you were hired for the tutoring, a setting that you have, maybe pictures, anything you can prove that it's a genuine experience. I am on work visa in New Zealand and working as caregiver here and have higher studies. One thing I would like to clarify here is in terms of caregiver, there are two types of caregivers. Are you a home support caregiver or you are a support worker? The tier codes changes. The tier code for the support worker is tier 3. The tier code for caregiver is tier 4. Now, both of these categories have different pathways. Tier 4 have pathways where you need a job offer from the employer in Canada, and these programs open up only once a year, and then they usually close up within first day itself. So that's where you have to see what kind of experience you have in this category. Supervisor for 1 year now, promoted to manager in Newfoundland. Should I apply for PNP or wait? Studied supply chain. You can apply for provincial nomination because your study I'm not sure what kind of supervisor you are, so it has to be related to your studies. So that's something we need more elaboration on. And accordingly, yes, it is possible that you can apply for provincial nomination, but then there are other factors as well. Trained in geriatric aged care training for 1 year and have 2 years experience in aged care. What can be the best pathway? Um, when we talk about aged care, as I said again, what specifically were you doing? Were you working in a long term, or you working a one-on-one home care service? So that's what makes the whole difference in terms of pathways. Why they are not conducting OINP tech draws? It's been 6 months. Um, n- Cannot say for sure, but it we do expect it happening this month. To be honest, after the healthcare draw that they've conducted recently, so let's wait for it. Um, Mostly, you'll see ONP kind of holding off on their draws is because they have almost reached their quota for the year 2024. So in the year end, that's what you see in most of the federal draws and most of the provincial draws, because they have reached their quota for the years. That's why they stop conducting draws for a certain category. So sometimes they have a lot of occupation in the tech. So a lot of applications in the tech draws already from the previous draws, so they would hold off on them, and they might have filled the quota for the tech already. I've done my GNM and 2 years experience in and past New York NCLEX. Is it possible to get PR of Canada? We need to see your CRS scores, Jagjot, and if not, directly under the express entry, you could also qualify for human capital priority stream. So, what Ontario PNP did was they have created an exception for the nurses for the education of that program. Now, if you are registered with the CNO, you want to pass the exam, so you're completing that prerequisite and getting registered with the CNO. You do not need a bachelor's degree to apply for human capital priority stream provincial nomination. So 100% it is possible that you could directly apply, but you need to figure out your pathway if you have GNM and 2 years experience. In demand material handler, do student time experience count? No, it does not, Jyoth. So Ontario PNPs do not count any student experience. I have question about food sector PNP. Is it open or closed now? Sorry. There's no such PNP as a food sector PNP, but there are different provincial PNPs, and they are holding off on food sector at this point. Now, if we talk about Nova Scotia, yeah, they're not accepting anybody from the food sector. New Brunswick is already filled up. PEI is filled up. The draws are quite high. So you would say that yes, food sector is something which is kinda on the hold side. I've applied my study permit extension on July 18th, but didn't got my extension till now. But now I graduated. What should I do now? Should I apply my PGWP with my extension approved? Okay, Kushal. Um, since you do not have a valid study permit now, and even when you apply for the post graduation work permit, you won't be eligible to assume the maintained status and work during this period because you don't have the prior authorization yet. What I would recommend is, if you think, since you submitted in July, you put a web form and ask them to give you a status update or a result on that study permit. If you can hold off a little bit, I would recommend you to do so, so that you can use that maintained status to work and gain experience. So, but it's your call. You have 180 days from the date you graduate. You're being given the completion letter. From that date, you have 180 days to submit the post graduation work permit application. What is the best PR pathway for religion worker with LMI exempt work permit? Um, it depends. There are only few provincial nomination programs that you could qualify under, but there's no specific program where they're targeting religious workers. So you might have to explore on that. Unskilled labor demand in Canada, farmer visa. Cannot say. See, it depends what kind of experience you have. and what kind of job you're getting. Yes, if you're working as a farm supervisor, there is an express entry agricultural draw where they are targeted if somebody has farmer experience. So let's say somebody from back home have self-employed supervisor experience in farming, you could directly qualify for permanent residency as long as you meet the CRS. So you need to appear for your IELTS, have a certain points in those IELTS, and that's when you qualify. So there it is easier, the requirements are okay, they, they are something which are achievable, but ultimately you also have to work on your IELTS. Without that, you won't qualify. Do I need VEST documents for PNP file? It depends what kind of application you're doing. It depends what kind of application you're doing, but then yes, VEST is required for some provincial nominations. But it depends. It depends on the category what you're doing. So just give me a second. Okay. I have 1 year technical support experience in Canada, completed 2 year computer programming diploma in Canada. I have CLB 923 and PGW will expire in September 2026. Ravi, you need to see what kind of CRS points you're getting. If you completed 2 year diploma in Canada and if you don't have a bachelor's degree, usually human capital priority stream, they target technical support, the user support technicians, but only if you have a bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you won't have pathway for that, and you might have to directly qualify or change the professions altogether. Working as caregiver in residential care home. So usually if it's a setting where multiple people are there and then you're working as an aide to nurses, then yes, they are tier 3 positions. I am chef working as cook. It's almost 15 months in Ontario. I'm eligible to apply for PR and CEC category. Yes, you're eligible to apply under the Canadian Experience Class categories if you have 12 months of experience within the last 3 years. But you also have to meet other category like requirements, as in you need to get your IELTS done. If whether your CRS where you are at right now, is it something which is as per the draws that are being conducted these days, and then you have to make sure that you should have a valid status at the time you gain that experience, and that experience that's how that experience will count. Applied for Alberta Rural Renewal Stream and my employer has changed, but business is same. Does it affect my PNP? Yes, it does. So when you're doing any employer specific applications, the entire application is based on that employer. And if the employer changes, irrespective, if things change in that entire situation, then you have to let PNP know. But if it's just that, the business has been sold to another employer, but the corporation remains same, that is different. But usually that doesn't happen. If somebody sells the business, they sells the business, but they take their corporation out. So if the corporation changes, then the business changes as well. So you have to kind of see for those requirements. My husband is working as an auto technician in Active Green Ross in Etobicoke, but I just moved to Kingston for my job a week ago. My husband should be here with me. Depends on the category you're applying. If it's a job that he has, and he doesn't have to move, but you might have to provide explanations of why you've been living apart if you're accompanying. But it depends again. If it's a provincial nomination, you have to kind of make sure that you prove to the officer that it's a genuine relationship and you're living apart for some reasons if they ask for that. If your like address is different for both the applications, then they will definitely ask. Any update for Nova Scotia PNP opening? Any idea when will PNP open? PNP is already open. They're accepting the applications. The only thing is that they are prioritizing the applications under the priority sectors only because they are almost finishing up with the quota for 2024. Caregiver and personal support worker, same pathway. No, just personal support worker falls into two categories. There are home support workers which are called personal support workers as well. So it depends where you're working. Wife has BSc nursing with 4 year experience. What are the requirements? Um, with 4 year experience as a staff nurse, she could qualify under the express entries category based selection or human capital priority streams of Ontario PNP. I have studied in Canada, but when I am trying to file my case, I'm not eligible. Please help me. What kind of case are we talking about? If we're talking about express entry, Canadian experience class category, you need minimum 1 year of experience within the last 3 years. That's when you qualify for CEC. But if, let's say, you have prior Indian experience and you want to create your express entry profile after you complete your studies in Ontario, or sorry, or in Canada, what you need to do is for federal skilled worker, there is a grid. That grid says that if you have minimum 67 out of 100 points, that's when you're eligible to create the express entry profile. Now if you're not able to create the profile, that could be because you don't have Canadian experience and you're relying on Indian experience or back home experience, and you want to you're not meeting that 67 out of 100. So do calculate your points as per that grid and you'll probably get your answer. I work full time in Ontario. Am I eligible for YNP, the new work permit extension under the new policy, and how can I get a provincial support letter? Aman, at this point, they have not introduced the process on how they will issue these support letters and for who they will issue. So we're still waiting on that. But Ontario PNP has not, Ontario, irrespective, like none of the PNPs, any of the provinces have given out how they're going to issue these support letters. Thank you, Amneet. So a lot of people ask about how much experience is required under the healthcare because we know that 6 months is required. But if you want to create an express entry profile, you need 1 years. Without that 1 year experience, you cannot create any express entry profile. That's the minimum requirement for any of the categories, be it CEC, FSW, FST. Okay. Now, out of that 1 year, if you have 6 months as a personal healthcare aide and 6 months with another experience, you could qualify under the CEC, but just 6 months of experience will not let you create the express entry profile. Okay, caregiver programs. Again, there are two type of programs in Canada who are targeting caregivers. One is home support. When we talk about caregiver to children and caregiving to support, as into elderly, that's called a caregiver home support worker pilot program. That pilot, usually the pilot is placed for a couple years. The previous pilot that was there, it ended in 2024. Now the new pilot that is going to start, it's going to start next year in 2025. But as of now, IRCC has not issued the guidelines on how they will accept the applications in the year 2025. Neither did they say what are the category requirements specifically. They just gave general requirements. If we talk about general requirements, you need a minimum of grade 12. And if you are whatever your highest education is, you have to get your ECA done, as in VES, ICAS, ECES. For the language exam, you need a minimum CLB 4 level. You need a relevant education or experience related to the job offer that you're getting, and you need a job offer from Canada. Now, when we talk about job offers, it's usually in a home setting. It could be from companies as well, but usually in a home setting. So let's say you have a family in Canada who wants a support worker for their parents, the elderly parents. Now they will be the one supporting you. They will be the one filling up that job offer form and providing you. But again, Since we do not know exactly what the program requirements are going to be, these are the general requirements. What I would recommend is keep the minimum requirements ready and wait till they announce the next information so that you're ready for the submission in January next year. I submitted non-express 20 July with 5690, now changing form to 01. Is it okay? Yes, Raman. So when you go to the portal, it says 5690, but actually you need to just go outside in the web and download 0199, because they have divided both the application checklist forms. So the checklist for Quebec skilled worker and the normal PR, they were combined first, but now they have segregated them both. So what I would recommend is fill up that 0199 and submit it. Even if they show 5690, just provide an explanation that it does not make sense. I'm not applying under Quebec skilled worker, and you have error in your form. And if that error has been corrected, well and good. Work permit application charges. What kind of work permit application charges, Dhriti? Almost done my study, my experience of 9 months in material handler to file the PNB. Do we need evaluation of studies? If you have highest education in Canada, you don't need any VES. But if you are like, because it's I think OINP skilled, OINP in demand you're talking about, so you might not need VES at all. Jashan, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन वर्क परमिट जुलाई 18 ਨੂੰ ਆਇਆ ਸੀ, ਹੁਣ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਕੀ ਕਰੀਏ। ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਸਟ ਗ੍ਰੈਜੂਏਸ਼ਨ ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਤੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਚੋਂ, ਤੇ ਇਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਆਕੂਪੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਚ ਆ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਟੈਕ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਅਗਰ ਟੈਕ ਤੋਂ ਰਿਲੇਟਡ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹ ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ, ਬਟ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਤੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਇੱਕ ਐਸਾ ਆਕੂਪੇਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਸਪੈਸੀਫਿਕਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ, ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਆਕੂਪੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੀ। ਸੋ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਉਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਵਰਕਰ ਦਾ, ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਜੌਬ ਆਫਰ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਬਟ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕੈਲਕੂਲੇਟ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਬਣਦੇ, ਅਗਰ ਆਇਲਸ ਕਰ ਸਕੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕੋਗੇ। ਅਗਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕੋਗੇ, ਦੈਨ ਆਈ ਵੁੱਡ ਰეკਮੈਂਡ ਕਿ ਕੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਵੱਲ ਜਾਓ। ਕੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਐਜ਼ ਕੰਪੇਅਰ ਟੂ ਦ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਫਰਕ ਇਹ ਆ, ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਉਹਦੀ ਮਿਨੀਮਮ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ 12 ਆ। ਬਟ ਅਗਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਦੀ ਮਿਨੀਮਮ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ 12 ਆ, ਸੌਰੀ ਬੈਚਲਰਸ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਯੂਜੂਅਲੀ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਅ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ 12 ਗ੍ਰੈਜੂਏਟ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਕੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ 'ਚ ਜਾਣਾ। ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ 'ਚ ਜਾਣਾ ਉਨਾ ਹੀ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਐਕਸਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਦੀ ਕੈਟੇਗਰੀ ਬੇਸ ਸਿਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਰ ਕਰ ਪਾਓਗੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਕੋਰਸ ਉਹਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣ ਪਾਣਗੇ। ਅਗਰ ਅਪਰੋਕਸੀਮੇਟਲੀ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਤੇ 450 ਤੱਕ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਐਕਸਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਸਿਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ। Can new business owners support in LMI? They can support in high wage and low wage LMIs, but they cannot support in PR supporting LMIs. Now, if your business is profitable enough, that's when you start with the LMI process. Otherwise, you don't, because there are a lot of additional requirements that have been added recently, and you need to prove, because your business is not 1 year old, you need to prove how your business will be profitable enough to pay the employee that you want to support. I want I applied for provincial nomination as skill trades as a glazier in April 2024, but there's no result now. How much more time can it take? At this point, skill trade applications that were submitted in March, April are taking about 4 to 5 months. What is the pathway for teacher back at home for over 25 years and here in Canada as healthcare caregiver? So I have explained a lot about healthcare today, the caregiver program. So what I would suggest is, if you need a one-on-one session, definitely we can do it. But again, caregiver, it depends what kind of caregiver we're talking about. If it's support worker caregiver, then we need to wait for the pathway to open up. BSc nursing with 4 year experience, there any need of language requirement? Yes, there is. If you want to apply under the express entry, the minimum requirement for the outside Canada is minimum 6 IELTS in all the modules. But with that minimum 6, you won't reach the CRS. So you need something at a CLB 8 level at least to meet the CRS that are, the draws that are conducted these days under express entry. Dhriti, if we're talking about post graduation work permit, we charge $250 for the post graduation work permits. Sterilization assistants require any certificate or degree. You need to check the NOC requirements for this occupation, but the assistants usually don't. So I don't think you're going to need it. But then it's a great occupation. It's a 33109 healthcare assisting occupations. So it falls under the category based selection of express entry. How much time take to get work permit? At this time, post graduation work permits are taking about, I think, 4 to 5 months. Forklift the experience 1 year in Brampton, ਤੇ ਕੋਲ PR ਲਈ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਫੋਰਕਲਿਫਟ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਿਚ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਮਟੀਰੀਅਲ ਹੈਂਡਲਰ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਊਟਸਾਈਡ ਆਫ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ, ਮਤਲਬ ਆਊਟਸਾਈਡ GTA ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਨੋਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਗਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ OINP ਇਨ ਡਿਮਾਂਡ ਕੈਟੇਗਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਯੂ ਨੀਡ ਇੰਪਲੋਇਰ ਜੌਬ ਆਫਰ ਫॉर दैट. For any quotes on what kind of application you want to do and you want a quote on that, please contact our office at 905-495-8500, and we'll be able to talk to you, understand your situation, what kind of application you're going to be applying, and what's the eligibility for the person you want to apply, and then definitely we'll be able to quote on that. Jashan, just study does not give us any PR pathways. You need to see what kind of experience you have. What are the language requirements with BSc nursing with 4 year of for express entry? Already added that before as well, but again, for the express entry, if you are talking about somebody who's outside Canada under the federal skilled worker program, the minimum requirement is CLB 7. But if you are in Canada, and depending what knock code is there, so if it's nursing, then again you need a CLB 7 minimum. But with minimum CLB 7, you might not get the CRS that you desire to get the invitation to apply for permanent residency. So that means you have to work more. There are two things: there's minimum eligibility, but then there is what's happening with the draws these days. So if the draws are conducted at a high CRS, that means you have to work more on your IELTS to get more points in the express entry pool. So if you are a home support worker in Ontario, and you have the experience, next year when the applications open, you can file under the experience category that you've already had that required experience, and you can directly file your permanent residency as well. Wait for the applications to open up for the next year. Mostly, I think it should be announced soon by at least October, November, so that people are ready with these applications. But then let's wait for that. What is the processing time for LMI except work permit? For the LMI applications, they're taking about 4 to 5 months these days minimum. So if you think your application has passed a 25-week processing time, what I would suggest is reach out to ESTC and let them know that the processing time has exceeded what you've given us, and you want that application to be processed as soon as possible, and they do open up the applications which has passed 25-week check. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us at 905-495-8500, or you can go to our website as well, nncimmigration.com, and you can book your appointment there as well. Any chances for a score of 500 to get ITA? If you are in the Canadian experience class category, then yes, of course, we do see a decline in these draws. And of course, it's going to come down gradually. It's not going to come down suddenly. So just wait for it to come. And yes, I do think there are chances for 500. Want to know if have forklift operators experience in GTA. In GTA, there are no PR pathways for forklift operators because it's a tier 5 position. There's only one pathway, that is occupation in demand, that and it's going to be outside GTA only. It's better if you have forklift operator experience. Try Northern Ontario because that's going to give you more points instead of outside GTA itself. एक साल ਦਾ forklift operator in Brampton मेरी PNP लग जाऊगी या नहीं? Brampton च नहीं लगूगी. After completing program, can we work as transcripts or completion letter not received yet? Yes, Raman, you can continue working if you do not have the completion letter from your college yet. As soon as you are notified by college that you've completed your course successfully, by any way. So sometimes there are colleges which issue the transcripts first and completion letter later. That doesn't mean that you have to wait for the completion letter. If you have been given the transcript and the transcript does say that you've passed all the courses, that means you are given a notification by college that you have passed your course. That means you have to stop working. How new business owner can prove that business will be profitable? You need to provide the invoices for the business. You need to provide the expected revenue, the past month revenue. So that's how, and then any savings you have as a business owner. So things like that would go in to prove that you have enough financials to hire the foreign national. LMI exempt work permit process. It depends what kind of application we're doing. If we're doing an outside Canada application, the processing time is about 3 months as of now. But if we're doing an in Canada application, it could go more. Like, it could be 4 months to 5 months as well. I'm recently graduated and my convocation is on 22nd October. Should I apply for parents visitor visa or later I should? Is it going worse for visitor visas? Definitely it is going worse for visitor visas at this point. The rate at which we saw visitor visas in the last 2 years, it is declining significantly. Now if your parents do not have enough financials to show, they do not show that there is a steady source of income and they have savings, usually these visitor visa applications are getting refused. Can you convert visitor visa into student visa? My son is 18 years old and has just finished plus two 4 months ago. He already has a visitor visa. He studied arts and is open to studying anything. Yes, Kiran, if he wants to convert his visitor visa to student visa, he can do that. You can definitely contact our office and we can assess his profile. I'm working in UK, skilled work, care home. I'm applying Canada tourist visa and I've done biometrics, but no result. Jasprit, at this At this time, if we talk about visitor visas from Europe, it's taking significantly long time. So I would say 6 to 9 months. We've seen an application getting approved after 9 months as well. So the timeline for the visitor visas in like from Europe is quite a lot. So you have to wait. I applied my study permit extension in August. How much time it can take? It is expired in December, but I applied 4 months ago. Is it okay? Yes, Tejasvi, if you applied 4 months prior to the expiry, it should be okay, absolutely okay. But the processing time of IRCC is all over the place right now, and that's why you see a lot of backlogs and not timely decisions. But if you want to continue your studies, you can, because you're going to be on maintained status while you're waiting for the decision on study permit extension. Charges for PNP processing. Usually we charge 1,500 for job offer based provincial nomination programs and $1,000 for the express entry based. Let me see. Dhruti, our office lines are open and they are accepting calls. Maybe you want to give us a call again, and definitely we'll be able to see. Can we create OINP profile without IELTS? What Ontario PNP profile are we talking about? Uh, and yes, it depends on the category. There are certain categories which doesn't require you to apply. Sorry, which doesn't require IELTS. So if that's the case, then yes, you can. Since my son already has a visitor visa, when should he come to Canada to start studies in January? Or is it too late for January and he has to start in May? To start in May, when would he have to arrive? Um, he can start applying for the offer letters even if he's outside Canada as well. But if we are talking about applying from within Canada for the student visa, he should have a valid reason to enter Canada. He shouldn't be entering Canada to to apply for student visa. He should be entering Canada for a reason other than applying for student visa, as in visiting somebody, a friend, a family member. So there has to be a well defined purpose of his visit, and then he can apply for the student visa once he's in Canada. um, OINP in demand skills. For the in demand category, you do not need IELTS. I've been a PNP food supervisor in Newfoundland for a year and I'm getting promoted to manager. Should I apply for PNP now or wait for manager experience? I studied supply chain. Okay. Sorry, just give me a second. Sorry, yes. Okay, so just check your points for the Newfoundland PNP. If you meet the grade, yes. Again, you could qualify for international graduate stream, but only if you studied. Your studies are related to your experience. Now, if you are in the food sector and you're doing supply chain, I think yes, it is relevant. So you should be able to apply as well. Physiotherapy assistant, a healthcare preferred job. Yes, I believe physiotherapy assistant is in the category based selection as well, but you can check the list on the express entry website. I will complete my 1 year course in next 2 months, so I just want to know, can I have to take further study for PNP and PR? At this time, if you are planning to apply for permanent residency, you do not want a 1 year work permit. It's very competitive in terms of jobs. If you think today, while as soon as you complete your studies, you are above 500, you will still not qualify for Canadian experience class draws because you need at least 1 year experience for CEC in Canada. If you are under the category based selection, if you're falling under the category based selection for certain occupations, that's when that 500 could help you, but otherwise it will not. A general occupation with 500 plus CRS will not get you any draws, any invitations, because the draws are not getting conducted for FSW category alone, which are not targeted. So yeah, sorry, you're adding to that question. I would recommend take another course and apply for a 3 year work permit instead of a 1 year. After how many, after how much experience in terms of hours should I put my file into the pool? When we talk about express entry, it's not just the hours. You have to meet two requirements. One is 1560 hours, which should have been completed within a year. So instead of calculating total number of hours, calculate weeks. Calculate 52 weeks with each week having 30 minimum hours that are full time weeks. If you're working part time, so you're going to have to double that. So any week that you worked 15 hours but less than 30, they're part time weeks, but you can count that as half. Now you need to complete 52 weeks. So 52 weeks of full time or 52 into 2 for part time. Can I waive IELTS for student visa while applying from India? I have studied and worked in US for 5 years. So Karen, if you're applying from India, the student direct stream requires you to have IELTS. But if you are not qualifying under the SDS category, you don't have to provide IELTS. But when you don't do that, you are putting that onto the officer to assess based on your education documents and the documents you've provided to prove that you have sufficient language proficiency. Now it's your call. Do you want to give the officer a certificate which reflects your points, or you want it on the officer to assess it? At this point in Canada, with Canadian immigration, I don't recommend putting anything to the officer. You give them what you want them to see. I'm an internationally educated nurse and working here as a personal support worker. Is there any direct PR pathway? Yes, at this point, personal support workers are targeted under the express entry category based selection if you are a nurse aide. For the home support workers, of course, you might have to resort to Ontario PNP's in demand category. They are targeting, even if you are a home support worker in GTA or outside GTA, they're targeting home support workers, but you need to make sure that you have enough scores to meet the category and you are getting job offer from a qualifying employer. What's the current processing time for PNP skilled worker Nova Scotia? 6 months, maybe 8 months if you're in the food sector. No, like if you're in the priority, I would say 3 to 4 months. Is IELTS necessary in OINP in demand skills for PR? For the scoring factors, no, it's not compulsory. Yeah. So, sorry, for the scoring factors, it's not compulsory because you're not getting scores for the ONP in demand IELTS proficiency, but the minimum requirement is CLB4. You do have to prove that you are at a CLB4 and you have to attach that to the application. It's not going to give you any scores, but that's the minimum requirement that you have to attach. Is there any scope for office administration and health services at Alberta if we completed our study at Toronto? If you want to apply for your provincial nomination in Alberta, you need a LMI based job offer from your employer. And that's how they'll be able to support you with provincial nomination under the opportunity stream of Alberta. What is the processing time of restoration of status and work permit in Ontario? I would say 4 to 5 months. How much experience required for GNM PR? It doesn't work like that. Minimum requirement is 1 year, but then it depends on the points. If you're not meeting the points, you might need more experience. I'm working in Manitoba in food category, so can I consider this as good way for PNP and how much time I would take? Absolutely bad idea, Jay. At this point, if we talk about Manitoba, the PNPs, the score is significantly high. If you calculate your score, you might have an idea of how it's going to happen. So I wouldn't recommend. What's the minimum investment in Edmonton to get the PR? If we are talking about that family investment visas, those are kind of closed up a couple years back. So those are not there anymore unless you want to qualify for the um, business immigration. So that's a different story. You have to prove that you have business experience. You need to put an application for the provincial nomination, meet the points. If you are selected, that's when you submit the business plan. Once that business plan is selected, reviewed, they approve it, you get the work permit, you come to Canada, you work and show them that you are establishing that business. And once you have established that business, that's when, in process of establishing that business, you prove to the province that you have done what you said. And after a year, you submit those documentation to them. They're going to issue you a provincial nomination. With that provincial nomination, you will be submitting a permanent residence application. Long process, could take about 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Can we go for work permit after visitor visa from outside Canada? Yes, you can, Devinder, 100%. If you have a valid job offer, you can apply for work permit from outside Canada. And of course, it's most likely it's going to be LMI based work permit only. So you'll be getting an LMI from an employer in Canada, and you'll be submitting the application. Um, okay. Does a US tourist visa help with getting Canadian tourist visa for my parents? There is a specific category under the visitor visa itself. It's called CAN Plus Visitor Visa. If you have visited Canada or US within the last 10 years, you fall under the expedited processing for the Canadian visit visa application. Now the decision whether it's going to be an approval or not, that depends on the officer and whether you meet the requirements or not, the financial requirements, the reasons of return and everything. But yes, it does help you a little if you have visited US before. Merely having a US visa does not help you with the Canada visa. Doing business in India with a turnover of 57 crores, January 2025, plan to visit. Yes, do have a business visit first before you file these applications, because usually the business visits give you additional points in those categories as well. But then definitely we'll be able to talk more if you want to book an one-on-one session on that business immigration. My study permit is expired, but I already applied for my study permit extension. But my studies, everything is done, and I have to apply PGWP, but I don't have valid study permit. What should I have to do? If you have applied for a study permit extension, you can file for the PGWP right now for sure. There won't be any problem. You submit that submission confirmation with it. But the only thing is, you cannot work in the maintained status. If you work in the maintained status, you're not authorized to do so. So you're going to go against the authorization. Basically, you're maintaining your status meaning you have a valid work permit and you are applying for an extension. But at this point, you don't have that valid work permit in hand, which is the work authorization that you get while you're a student. So you cannot assume the maintained status as well. So if the study permit extension gets approved, that's when you can assume the maintained status. Will the CRS score fall below 500 in this year? Thank you. Uh, Less likely, I think, to be honest, because if we see the number of applications that are already in there and the way they are conducting the draws, the quotas, I don't think that it's going to go below 500 this year, especially because the yesterday's French draw, it was at 446. It clearly demonstrated that the immigration quotas are filling up, so they don't want a lot of applications being targeted. That's why they conducted this draw at a relatively high draw. It was not because there were a lot of candidates with high CRS. It was because um, specifically because they want very less candidates in there. So again, it's my assumption, but I don't think it's going to go below 500 this year. LMI exempt work permits are there, but then we need to see whether you're going to qualify for that or not. It's usually if you have a spouse, if you fall into the C16 French category. So there are only limited categories there without without job offer that you can do. As per a new pilot program, need to wait till January to know more about it, right? Shika, I'm not sure whether it's going to be January. I think it should be announced within this year. So because they accept those applications in January, but then we cannot say for sure. Given the quote, given the kind of trend that they want to reduce the number of temporary applications, so it is possible that they might kind of extend it and push it back a little bit so that they don't have to take on new applications at this point. What could be the reason of no draws in categories such as STEM, trade, etc.? Um, I think it has absolutely to do with the immigration quotas for the year. If they fill that quota for those certain occupations already, then they will hold on to those draws. Perfect. So I hope it was an informative session. If you guys want more information and or you want to book a one-on-one session, you can call our office at 905-495-8500, or you can book your appointments through our website. It's nncimmigration.com. You can book an appointment directly and we can have one-on-one sessions. It's usually phone consultations, in-person consultations, whichever works for you as per your situation. So as for these sessions, we usually try do these sessions on alternate Saturdays, but we'll keep you posted on when the next session is going to be. Thank you so much, guys.